Welcome back. As we get older, we all want to stay healthy and maintain that health for as long as possible, of course.
So 9 News medical expert Dr. Pyle Coley joining us now with some quick tips to help us live longer.
Ooh.
This is like a big task.
And the idea here, ladies, is not just to live longer, but to live better, to live healthier. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we do that?
Yeah, when people come to you as a cardiologist, like what are the biggest fears people have about growing in age?
You know, I hear this every day, and I'm going to ask you in a minute what your fears are. But the two biggest fears that I hear universally across the board, having a stroke or having dementia. So if I told you that I had a recipe for you to significantly minimize your chance of having these subsequent events, and you started to do that in your 20s, 30s, 40s, so it would reduce your risk of having a stroke or ever having dementia, wouldn't that be something we would all want?
Why aren't we talking about this? Is there a recipe we can do right now to prevent this from happening later?
Yes, and so the idea here is to prevent the damage before it happens. Waiting until you have a heart attack or stroke and then doing something is having it backwards. So the first is cholesterol. If our bad cholesterol, that's the LDL, stays below 70 for most of our adult life, your risk of having those outcomes substantially reduced. The second, blood pressure, right? So our skin ages with wrinkles, our blood vessels get a little stiffer. If we watch that blood pressure, keep it less than 130/80 for most of our adult life, we can live longer, we can live better.
Cholesterol and blood pressure,
Got
not
that?
puzzles.
Okay. Well, puzzles, it works with your brain, right? I feel like I read that somewhere. I don't know.
What about like a specific test?
There is also a test, so I'm glad you asked me this as well, because for those of us at home, how do we know if we're in good physical shape? And I want you guys to both do this as well when you go home today.
Okay.
So it's called the standing to sitting to standing test, and it's correlated with actually predicting your risk of dying.
Oh my
So if you can get a perfect score on this test, which only 8% of people over the age of 55. Yes.
Can I bring Justin out?
Please.
Justin, executive producer Justin, come over here.
So I want you to demonstrate for us, Justin.
We didn't wear pants, so you're our guinea pig. Thank you,
he's
friends.
starting with standing, and he's going to try and sit down cross-legged on the ground. And now, without using his hands or his knees, he's going to have to stand up all the way to a standing position.
Can he move his feet?
He can move his feet, but he can't prop off the ground.
Okay.
So
wait, before he goes, you used a little momentum, Justin. Was he allowed to use the momentum?
So you are allowed to use momentum, but maybe that's a half a point reduction.
Okay.
So 10
Wait,
out
how
of
he
10.
went that way, does that count, or does you have to stand straight up?
Straight up, because that's a balance issue, right?
Come on,
when you
Justin.
stand up and you can't.
That was good.
Much
Okay,
better.
wonderful.
Would you give him like an A+? He's gonna live healthy longer.
So that would be a 10 out of 10.
Good job, Justin.
But as we get older, that score goes down. And so that's where we really need to pay attention. Because if you think about what he did, he made it look really easy, but it was actually really complicated, right? So there's coordination, there's balance, there's joints, there's cardiovascular strength, and there's flexibility. And these are the things that atrophy as we age, they go away. So if we're not able to do that without using our hands or our knees to prop us up, we know that we need to work on exercises.
Yeah, that's such a good test. But I do want to ask you, as far as genetics are concerned, because I look at my parents who are exactly the same age. One is thriving, I mean, you know, and one is in ill health. So is it genetics that play a role in this at all that you have to be focused in on too?
Yeah, so I mean, our family is our mirror, right? So if our family's genetics predicts our genetics, but only about 25% of how long we live is determined by genes, which means 75% is determined by our lifestyle behavior. And I like to say your genes are like your hardware, but what you do is your software. So the expression of those genes as well can really get changed by what we're doing, activities like smoking, exercising, alcohol, sleeping, stress. All of these can alter how our genes are actually expressed and how long.
Diet too?
Very much so. So there's two types of diets that are associated with living longer, Mediterranean and DASH diet. But I would also have you guys think about this. As we age, our metabolism slows down, so we counteract that by eating less. So caloric restriction as we age has been directly linked to our longevity, to making us live longer and living healthier. But instead, what do? We eat the same that we always ate, or sometimes even more, and we do less activity. So being really mindful of those calories you put inside you. And the rule of thumb is every decade of your life, cut your calories by at least 10%.
Oh boy,
and
that's a lot.
That's a lot. It's a lot.
Dr. Coley and her rule of thumb.
I know.
Thank you, Dr. Coley. Very, very useful information and very important. We appreciate it.
And you guys tell me how you do on that test.
I'm going to try when I get home.
I did it earlier in the studio.
Could you do it?
Well, yeah, I could, but I have a skirt on.
Okay.
So
well, we'll record ourselves
Yeah.
and show you that we can do it.
Not that kind of show. Okay.